I never thought I'd be one of those dumbasses who end up in a true dark web horror story. I used to read them, laugh at them, assume they were just badly written fiction. But here I am, barely able to sleep at night, waking up in cold sweats, still feeling the goddamn zip ties around my wrists. I wish I had never gone on the dark web. I wish I had just stuck to Reddit and YouTube and played my stupid games instead of trying to be edgy. But no, I had to be a fucking idiot. I had to mess around. And because of that, I was kidnapped, tortured, and forced to watch things that I can't scrub from my brain. It started like this. I was bored as hell one night, scrolling through Twitter, and I saw some thread talking about crazy dark web stories. You know, the usual, people finding hitmen for hire sites, red rooms, organ auctions, all that insane shit. I didn't believe most of it. I mean, come on, red rooms in 2024. Every hacker and their mother says those are just myths. But I was curious. I'd already messed around with Tor before, just clicking random links and laughing at how stupidly edgy the sites were. It was always the same. Pages selling fake passports, weird conspiracy forums, sketchy Bitcoin scams. But that night, I wanted to dig deeper. I found a link in some sketchy-ass forum called Cold Door, and it promised something beyond the surface of the dark web. The site looked like shit, just plain white text on a black screen. The link itself was called Morsvitae, which I later found out means Death Life in Latin. I clicked it. The site had no graphics, just a login screen. Below it, there was a little box that said, "Enter referral code." I didn't have one, obviously, but under the box there was a small hyperlink that said, "Request invite." I clicked it, expecting it to be some kind of paywall, but instead, it just asked for my email. I hesitated for a second, then put in my burner email. Less than a minute later, I got a response. "Welcome, user. Your access is granted. Do not share this link. Failure to comply results in consequences. Proceed carefully." There was a new link in the email. I clicked it without thinking. The website was just a black screen with a single video player in the middle. No title, no descriptions, just a play button. I pressed it. At first, it was just static. Then the screen flickered and I saw a dimly lit room. It looked like an old, shitty basement. The camera was shaky, like someone was holding it while walking. There was a chair in the middle of the room, and a guy was tied to it. He was already beaten to hell, his face was swollen, one of his eyes was shut completely, and he was gagged with duct tape. I suddenly felt sick. Someone walked into the frame, wearing a black hoodie and a ski mask. He didn't say anything, he just stood there for a second, looking at the guy in the chair. Then, slowly, he pulled out a knife. I was about to close the tab when I heard the guy in the chair scream through the gag. The masked man grabbed his hand and, without hesitation, started cutting off his fingers. I could hear the muffled shrieks, the sound of the blade soaring through flesh and bone. It wasn't like in movies, it wasn't clean, it was slow, messy. The guy tried to pull away, but he was tied too tight. The masked man took his time, twisting the blade as he cut, making sure it hurt as much as possible. I was frozen. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. And the masked man turned to the camera, tilted his head, and pointed directly at me. My heart stopped. It was like he knew I was watching. I slammed my laptop shut, breathing hard, trying to convince myself it was just a pre-recorded video. But the paranoia hit me instantly. What if they could see me? What if I'd just accessed some live feed I wasn't supposed to see? I yanked the battery out of my laptop and paced around my room, sweating. My heart was pounding in my chest, and for a second I actually thought I was going to have a heart attack. I told myself I was overreacting, just some sick fucks trying to scare people. That's all it was. But then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I stared at it. I didn't answer. A few seconds later, I got a text. "Enjoy the show?" I felt my stomach drop. I didn't reply. I turned my phone off and threw it across the room. I tried to convince myself it was some elaborate prank, maybe a hacker who got my email from that site. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just made a massive fucking mistake. I barely slept that night. Every sound outside made me jump. I kept checking my window, my door, making sure everything was locked. I thought about calling the cops, but what the fuck was I gonna say? Hey, I went on the dark web and saw murder, and now I think they're watching me. They'd laugh me out of the station. By the next morning, I started to calm down. No more messages, no weird phone calls. Maybe it was just some sick troll trying to freak me out. Then I left my apartment to grab a coffee. And that's when I saw it. A black van, parked across the street. I didn't think much of it at first. I mean, it's just a van, right? But then I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The guy in the driver's seat, he was wearing a ski mask. I turned around and walked straight back into my building, locking the door behind me. I pulled out my phone to call someone, anyone, but before I could dial, I got another text. Run! I didn't even have time to react before I heard footsteps in the hallway. Heavy, fast footsteps coming straight for my door. I turned to bolt towards my bedroom window, but I was too slow. The last thing I remember was my front door bursting open. Then everything went black. I woke up to the feeling of something rough and plastic wrapped around my mouth. My head was pounding like I had been hit with a sledgehammer. My arms were numb, and when I tried to move, I realized I couldn't. My wrists were tied together, my ankles too. The first thing I noticed was the smell. It was thick, rotten, like a mix of mold, sweat, and something metallic. Blood. I tried to open my eyes, but my vision was fucked, like I was coming out of anesthesia. Everything was blurry, my head swimming. I could hear something, a low, humming noise, like an engine running. A van, panic, hit me like a truck. They took me. I wasn't in my apartment anymore. I wasn't safe. I started struggling, but the second I moved, I felt a boot slam down on my stomach, hard. I choked against the duct tape over my mouth, gasping through my nose as my lungs screamed for air. Stay the fuck still. The voice was deep, rough, no emotion. I blinked up, trying to focus. There were two of them, both wearing ski masks. The one sitting in the passenger seat had tattoos all over his arms, some kind of script I didn't recognize, curling around a blacked-out cross on his forearm. The guy who had just stomped on me was even worse. His mask was dirty, stained with something dark around the mouth, and his jeans were spattered with red. I didn't want to think about what it was. My body went into full fight or flight mode, but it didn't matter. I was fucking tied up, my mouth taped shut, and my head still spinning from whatever they used to knock me out. You move again, I'll snap your fucking legs, the guy above me growled. I froze. My body started shaking. Passenger seat guy chuckled. He's awake earlier than I thought. You hit him too soft? Motherfucker went down easy, dirty mask guy muttered. He crouched down, getting in my face. I could smell his breath through the mask, something stale and sour, like cigarettes and dried blood. You're lucky you're worth more alive. Otherwise I'd make this van your coffin. I felt my stomach twist. Worth more alive. I wasn't just some random victim. They wanted me. The website, the fucking video. I never should have clicked. Think he's putting it together, passenger seat guy said. Let's help him out. Dirty mask reached down and ripped the tape off my mouth. I gasped, coughing, trying to suck in air, but my throat was dry as hell. My lips felt raw, and I could taste something bitter, probably whatever they drugged me with. Where? I croaked. My voice barely worked. Where are you taking me? Passenger guy turned around, resting an arm on the seat. He had cold, dead eyes. Not your business. I swallowed hard. Please, I won't tell anyone, just let me go. A slap. Hard. My head snapped to the side, my cheek instantly burning. "You think we give a fuck about you snitching?" Dirty Mask Guy growled. "You're in it now, dumbass. You came to us. You clicked the fucking link. That means you agreed." I felt my blood turn to ice. "You agreed." What the fuck are you talking about?" I stammered. Passenger seat guy smirked. "Mors vitae. You entered the code. You accepted the terms." "Terms? What terms? There were no fucking terms." I shook my head, my breathing getting ragged. "That's bullshit. I didn't agree to anything." "Yeah." Dirty Mask leaned in, grabbing a fistful of my hair. "Then why the fuck did you watch the show?" My stomach twisted into knots. "You think this is some spooky, haunted website for dumbass Reddit kids? Nah, this is business. You click, you're in." Passenger seat guy lit a cigarette, taking a long drag. "We don't make the rules, man, but now you're here." I started shaking harder. "Please, just let me go. I won't say anything, I swear." Dirty Mask scoffed. "You still think this is a negotiation?" I didn't answer, because I already knew. It wasn't. The van slowed. I felt it take a sharp turn, the tires crunching over gravel. Dirty Mask Guy leaned back, cracking his knuckles. "Don't fight when we drag you out, it'll only make it worse." My chest felt tight. I wanted to cry, scream. I wanted to wake the fuck up from whatever nightmare this was. I didn't have time. The van screeched to a stop. The back doors swung open, and before I could even process what was happening, they yanked me out. I hit the ground hard. My knees scraped against the rough dirt, pain shooting up my legs. My hands were still tied behind my back, so I couldn't even catch myself. I looked up. We were in some kind of abandoned warehouse lot. Rusted out cars, burned wood piles, a single floodlight flickering over a massive steel door. The kind of place where people disappear. There was another guy waiting by the door. No mask, just a face covered in scars. His lips curled into a smile. "Welcome to the party." I opened my mouth to scream. Then the butt of a rifle slammed into the side of my head. Everything went black. I woke up to a splitting headache, the kind that makes you forget who you are for a few seconds. My skull felt like it had been caved in. My vision swam in and out of focus, and my mouth was dry as sandpaper. It took me a minute to realize where I was. Concrete floor, rusty walls, dim flickering light overhead. And the worst part, the smell. Sweat, blood, piss. Something worse, like rotting meat, like a butcher shop that never cleaned up. I tried to move, but my arms were still tied behind me. My wrists burned from the zip ties, skin rubbed raw. My ankles were bound too. They weren't taking any chances. Then I heard it. Breathing. Not mine. Someone else's. I forced myself to look up. I wasn't alone. The room wasn't big, just a shitty storage space with a single steel door. But there were other people, 3 of them. One guy was slumped in the corner, barely conscious. His face was swollen, one eye completely shut. Another guy, bigger, maybe in his late 30s, was staring at the ground, mumbling to himself. The third was a girl, young, probably my age. Her jeans were torn, her lip busted, and her wrists were covered in old scars, like she had been here a lot longer than us. She was the first one to notice me moving. Her eyes locked onto mine, and she shook her head fast. "Don't make noise." That's when I realized there was someone else in the room, not one of us. A man stood by the door, arms crossed, watching. He wasn't like the other guys who took me. No ski mask, no tattoos, just a plain black hoodie, dark jeans, and a face that looked completely empty, like there was nothing behind his eyes. He noticed me looking and smirked. "New guy's awake," he muttered. His voice was calm. Too calm. The girl flinched. The guy in the corner started shaking harder. I didn't say anything. I was too afraid to. The man walked over to me, crouched down, and grabbed my face with one hand. His fingers dug into my cheeks, forcing my mouth open. I could taste the dirt and sweat on his skin. Yeah, he muttered, studying me like I was a fucking animal at a market. You'll do! Then he stood up, cracked his neck, and walked out the door. The second it shut, the girl lunged toward me, not to hurt me, to whisper. You need to listen, she hissed. Don't ask questions, don't fight. And whatever you do when they take you in there... She gestured toward the steel door. Do not cry. I stared at her. My throat was dry, my whole body was shaking. What the fuck is this? I managed to croak out. She didn't answer, because the door opened again, and this time they were coming for me. Two guys, different from before, no masks but just as terrifying. One was bald with deep scars running down his arms. The other looked normal, too normal, the kind of guy you'd see at a gas station and not think twice about. They didn't say anything, they just grabbed me. I thrashed, trying to kick, but it was useless. They were too strong. My feet barely touched the ground as they dragged me out of the room. I caught one last glimpse of the girl. She wasn't looking at me anymore, she was staring at the floor, like she already knew what was coming. They took me down a hallway, if you could even call it that. The walls were rusted metal, the air thick and humid. I could hear sounds, screams, not loud, muffled, like someone was trying to hold it in but couldn't. Then we reached another door. Heavy, bolted shut. The scarred guy knocked. A few seconds passed. Then a lock clicked and the door creaked open. I didn't want to go inside. Every cell in my body screamed at me to run, fight, do something. But I couldn't. They shoved me forward, and before I could process it, the door slammed shut behind me, and I was inside. The room was small, too small. No windows, just a concrete floor, a single chair, and a man standing beside it. He was dressed in a suit. That was the first thing that threw me off. He didn't look like the others. No ski mask, no tattoos, no blood-stained clothes. Just a fucking suit, like some CEO in the wrong place, except he wasn't. He was exactly where he belonged. Sit, he said. His voice was smooth, almost friendly, like a banker offering a loan. I didn't move. Scarred guy grabbed the back of my neck and forced me down. The second my ass hit the chair, the man in the suit pulled out a phone. Not a normal one, something old, a thick, blocky thing from the early 2000s. No camera, no internet, just buttons. He held it up. You're probably wondering why you're here. I was shaking so hard I couldn't even answer. The man smirked, like he enjoyed the fear. You clicked the link, he continued. You entered the code, and that means you agreed to play. Play what? I finally forced out. His smirk widened. The game. Then he turned the phone around, showing me the screen, a timer, counting down from 1 hour. You survive, he said. You leave. I felt like I was going to throw up. And if I don't? The man shrugged. Then you die on camera. I started shaking my head. No, I didn't agree to this. You did, he said, simply. The second you watched, the second you clicked, you became part of it. I wanted to scream, to fight, to do something. But then the man pressed a button on the phone. A new video popped up, and my blood ran cold, because it wasn't just a random clip, it was my apartment. My fucking apartment. The screen showed my front door, my couch, my laptop, my fucking bed. They had been inside. Before they took me, they were already watching. The man leaned down, his voice barely above a whisper. You don't have a choice. Then he stood up, stepped back, and let the timer run. 59:37. The countdown had begun. I was going to die. That was the only thought in my head as I stared at the timer ticking down. 59:34. 59:33. The man in the suit just stood there, calm, hands in his pockets, watching me like I was a fucking lab rat in an experiment. You should start moving, he said. I could barely breathe. Moving where? He tilted his head, amused. Out of the chair. My whole body was trembling as I forced myself to stand up. My legs felt like jelly, my head still pounding from the beating. The zip ties around my wrists and ankles were gone now. I hadn't even noticed when they cut them off. I looked around. There was only one door. I stepped toward it, but before I could reach it, the man's voice stopped me cold. "You don't want to open that yet." I turned to look at him. "What the fuck do you want from me?" He smiled. Entertainment. I swallowed hard. My whole body was on fire with adrenaline. My mind was screaming at me to do something, to fight, to run, but I had nowhere to go. I looked at the phone again. 5847, 5846. My hands were shaking. "What happens when it hits 0? The man grinned. "Why don't you find out?" I felt like throwing up. I turned back toward the door, grabbed the handle, and pulled it open. The hallway on the other side was pitch black. For a second I just stood there, my breath shallow, my heart slamming against my ribs. I could feel the man still watching me, like this was all a fucking joke to him. I stepped forward. The second my foot crossed the threshold, the lights exploded on. Not normal lights. Red. A deep, pulsing red glow filled the hallway. The air was thick, humid. The walls weren't concrete anymore. They were metal, rusted, stained. Some parts looked burned. I turned to look back at the man. He was still inside the room, watching me with that same empty smirk. Then the door slammed shut between us. I jumped back, my breathing ragged. I turned back toward the hallway. There was a sound, not screaming, not footsteps. Something wet, a squelching noise, slow, rhythmic, like something heavy being dragged across the floor. I didn't want to move. I didn't want to know what was making that sound, but the timer was still running. I looked down at the phone. 5712, 5711. I forced myself to walk. Every step felt wrong. The floor was slick in some places, sticky in others. The air stank. And then I saw it, something on the ground, a trail, not dirt, not oil, blood, a thick, dark streak leading further down the hallway. I wanted to turn back, but I couldn't. I kept walking. The dragging sound was getting closer. I reached the end of the hallway and found myself standing in front of another door. This one was different. It wasn't metal. It looked like it used to be white, but now it was covered in handprints. Bloody handprints. Some were small, too small. I didn't want to open it, but I didn't have a choice. I pushed the door open and I stepped into hell. The room was massive, like an old factory floor, but the walls were lined with cages, dozens of them, rusted bars, some empty, some with people inside. I felt my stomach drop. The people in the cages weren't moving. Some were curled in the corners, shivering. Some were staring at the ceiling, eyes blank. And some weren't breathing at all. And then I saw the table. A steel table in the middle of the room, stained dark. And the thing next to it. At first, I thought it was a man, but as I got closer, I realized it wasn't. It was wearing a leather butcher's apron, but its head, it was covered in a mask made of flesh, human flesh. My stomach lurched. The thing was holding a bone saw, and it was dragging something across the floor. A body, a fresh one. I could still see the fingers twitching. I must have made a noise because the thing froze. Slowly it turned toward me, and it started smiling. I turned and ran. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't care. I just sprinted back toward the hallway, heart slamming, vision tunneling. I could hear the thing moving behind me, but I didn't look back. I reached another door, yanked it open and stumbled inside. I slammed it shut behind me, gasping for breath. The room was small and dark, no windows, just a single mirror on the far wall, a two-way mirror, and then suddenly the lights in the other room flickered on, and I saw them, A group of men in suits sitting around a long table, watching me. One of them looked up, and he smiled. He lifted a hand and made a gesture, a simple motion. "Keep going!" The lights went out, and the timer kept ticking. 56:02, 56:01. I couldn't breathe. I was standing in the pitch-black room, my heart hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. The men in suits, they were watching me, like this was some fucked-up reality show, and I was the main attraction. The timer was still counting down. 56:00, 55:59. I forced myself to move. I felt along the walls, my hands slick with sweat. The door was gone. There was no way out. I was trapped. I turned back to the mirror. My reflection was barely visible in the dark, but I could still see my own wild, terrified eyes. Then something moved behind me. I spun around. Nothing. The lights in the other room flickered back on. The men in suits were still there, but now there was someone standing with them. Someone I knew. I felt my stomach drop. It was the girl from the cage, the one who had warned me, the one who looked like she had been here for a long time. But now she wasn't in a cage. She was standing beside the men. She was one of them. I felt like my brain couldn't process it. No, she had been a prisoner. She had tried to help me. She wasn't... She looked directly at me, and she smiled. My blood turned to ice. The man in the middle of the table, the one who had made the hand gesture, leaned forward and tapped his finger on the table. The lights in my room flashed on, and then I saw it. The walls weren't blank. They were covered in photos, hundreds of them. I stepped closer, my body numb, my vision swimming. My apartment, my job, my fucking childhood home. They had been watching me for years. There were pictures of my friends, my family, my little sister. I felt like I was going to be sick. Then I saw the last picture. Mister, sitting in my room, on my laptop. From the night, I clicked the link. I turned to the mirror, my breath shallow. What the fuck is this? The girl tilted her head, still smiling. The man in the middle stood up. He walked toward the mirror, close enough that I could see the lines on his face, the absolute emptiness in his eyes. He raised one hand and snapped his fingers. The walls shifted. No, they slid open. The room was changing, expanding. The mirror was gone. The floor beneath me rumbled, and suddenly I wasn't in a small dark room anymore. I was on a stage, a massive circular platform surrounded by screens. And on those screens, I saw them. Thousands of people watching, some in dark rooms, faces barely visible in the glow of their monitors, some in high-rise offices sipping wine like this was entertainment, some laughing, some typing, some placing bets. I couldn't fucking breathe. I was the show, the game. I looked back at the man in the suit. He was holding something now, a knife. He flipped it in his hand, casual, like this was just another part of the show. "You have one last choice," he said. I couldn't move, I couldn't think. My whole body was ice. "Live or die?" he asked. It wasn't a real question because I already knew. It didn't matter what I did, I was never leaving this place. I had been chosen, not kidnapped, selected. I didn't scream, I didn't fight, because somewhere deep inside I understood the truth. I had clicked the link. I had agreed to play, and now I belonged to the game.